Hey everybody, Josh from A Cast of the Past here. Just want to let you guys know on November 7th at 3 p.m. we will be hosting a 24-hour long charity stream at twitch.tv/Cast of the Past. Come join us. You'll be able to see us play a whole bunch of video games as well as having a lot of fun doing live D&D campaigns, doing a live podcast, doing a full movie watch along as well. We're going to have a lot of guests and we're going to be giving away items and lots of video games as well. So stop on by on November 7th at 3 p.m. This will be for a good cause, so we hope to see you guys there. But until next time, we'll see you in the future. So this is it, people. It's the most spookiest time of the year, October. Yes, and we're going to jump into this month with nothing but spooky games. Welcome to A Cast of the Past, where best friends get together to talk about old games in a new light. I'm Josh.
And I'm the last of Tom.
And today, we're going to be talking about the hit PlayStation 3/4 game, The Last of Us.
My first time ever playing it, for the record. Yes.
Which is very shocking. I mean, it's one of those games that's like, you've never played The Last of Us? Oh my god, I can't believe it. You never played The Last of Us? Tom, it's The Last of Us.
I know. It's the Wire of video games in my life.
I've never seen The Wire.
Played it. Well, oh my god, Josh, you never seen The Wire?
Going back and replaying this game during the times that we're living in right now, man, it is like, it was hard. I was just like, oh man, this is hitting way too close to home.
I mean, I imagine I would have been like just in a bad vibe mood playing this game any other year. But the fact that, you're wading through quarantine zones while people are rationing supplies and you're seeing the worst behavior from humans as a disease slowly ravages us, I was like, I didn't need it. I didn't need that this year.
I will say this game is very unrealistic though, because there's nobody saying that there's no disease out there. I don't get it.
Yeah. You would assume there'd be some antifungal deniers out there.
Or some sort of sign that says, wait till November, then this is all over.
Fireflies are just a red flag terrorist organization meant to distract us from the big picture.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what happened. But yes, so this is a big game. And we always try to start at the beginning. So, Josh, would you mind if before you guide us on the story of this game, can I do the history lesson?
Oh, absolutely. Tell me about this little known developer called Naughty Dog.
So Naughty Dog, the Sony-owned third-party developer. When you're owned by the company, are you a third party or are you a second party?
I guess you're considered.
Is it first?
I guess you're first because you are exclusive to them.
Okay.
Where Rocksteady is a third party.
Right. One of Sony's adopted children, Naughty Dog.
There you go.
String of hits with the series, specifically within this console generation. On the PlayStation 3, Naughty Dog produced the Uncharted series, which was a huge smash blockbuster. And so after the success of 2009's Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, Naughty Dog, for the first time in their company's history, they split their development team into two because they want to explore something really ambitious. The studio's creative director, Neil Druckmann, he for years has had this idea, Josh. He wants to take the escort protective action-based gameplay of Ico. Are you familiar with Ico?
Yep. It was the game that happened before Shadow of the Colossus.
Yes. So yeah, cel-shaded mythical adventure game about a warrior guiding a princess through a fantasy world and protecting her. He wants to take that gameplay concept and he wants to merge it with the mood and atmosphere of George Romero's Dawn of the Dead movies. So big ambition there. And I mean, I think he kind of nailed it. There are some things that changed around the way, but when you start from that seed, that little nugget, it's almost all there on the screen. And a funny little note for you, Josh. Another big influence on this game was a little underdog title called Resident Evil 4. Have you heard of it, Josh?
No, because it was really, I didn't remember fighting any giant iguanas or trolls or fish in this game.
True.
So I don't understand where you're getting the references from.
I imagine Druckmann really had to struggle to cut them out. He's like, I just want Ellie to have to encounter a giant troll right here, but I got to scale back. That wouldn't happen in Colorado. But yes, so Naughty Dog pushed ahead. They go deep into their motion capture performance work that they've already been pioneering on Uncharted, with the game led by Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson, who are two kind of video game character actors of note. And overall, it's a production that evolves. Joel, the main character, played by Troy Baker, was originally supposed to be a cop with a heart condition. So his heart condition would actually trigger the gameplay such switches with Ellie. You'd be in the role of Joel, and then my heart, and then play as Ellie and provide cover until Joel can be back on his feet. That obviously changed. A lot of the character changes were during development were influenced by the actors playing them. Troy Baker had some suggestions about Joel. Ashley Johnson had some suggestions about Ellie, and that's how it evolved. And just got to say, there are some pretty notable gaming character actors in this, besides the two that I mentioned. Just for further context, Troy Baker, he's one of the more prolific guys in gaming. He's the Batman villain Joker, and sometimes Batman in a variety of DC titles.
He was
Arkham
also
Origins,
Two-Face in the Arkham
Joker.
games.
Arkham City, yes. He's, I guess, Arkham Knight too. He was Two-Face.
Yeah.
He's Booker DeWitt in Bioshock Infinite. He's Pagan Min in Far Cry 4. So, etc., etc. Ashley Johnson, you may recognize. She is the voice actress for Terra from the Teen Titans cartoon series. She was also Gwen in the Ben 10 franchise. And she also had an iconic role as a waitress Beth in the Avengers.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she had an interview at the end of the first one.
Yep. And then this is just mostly for me, but also slightly for you. But playing a small role in this game, Robert, he's a little bit of a scumbum that you encounter in the first act of this game. He's played by Rowan Atkin Downs, who is famous for two characters that are close to Josh and myself. For me, he's the character Kaz Miller from Metal Gear Solid 5. With the infamous, they played us like a damn fiddle. And for Josh, he is the voice actor of Travis Touchdown from the No More Heroes franchise.
Yes, he is.
But Josh, when did you start hearing the buzz for Last of Us? When was this first on your radar?
This was, when I saw the first trailer and they were showing just what this game was going to be, and the fact that it was from Naughty Dog already sold me. My history of Naughty Dog dates back to Crash Bandicoot. I was pretty loyal with them most of the time when I had a PlayStation console. And coming off of Uncharted 1 and then Uncharted 2, I was like, well, what's this spooky horror game now that they're going to do? I'm definitely into it because there's really no survival horror games out now during this time. Like the last big one that I had was Dead Space and Dead Space 2. Like there was nothing hitting at that itch. And then all of a sudden when I saw this trailer, I was like, this is pretty much like Resident Evil horror zombie-ish mixed with the Uncharted franchise. And I was like, this could be really good. And ever since then, I was like, man, like I'm sold on this. So I got it day one when it came out, and I was like, I need to play through this. So that
right
was
away?
Right. Exactly. I dove right into it.
Yeah, this came out, as we mentioned, in 2013, a year away from the launch of the PS4. So the swan song of the PS3 in a way. This is kind of like the last major title released. And Josh, what were your impressions of it in 2013?
I was in awe with it, and still to this day pretty much was. This was like the game that kind of put that idea that storytelling is going a completely different direction than what we're used to seeing in video games. Yeah, we have like your basic narrative or shoot this guy, blow this thing up. This was so compelling. The characters in this game were just unlike anything that I've played before. And yeah, you got some of that in the Uncharted game, but there was so much more feeling, and you cared about these characters, and you cared about how are they going to get out of this situation. It wasn't like, oh, well, they're going to save the world at the end of the game or something like that. This was very real. And the way that Troy and Ashley performed their characters in this game made me believe in the struggles that these people are going through. And when it comes to actual like acting in a game, probably one of the most heart-wrenching performances I've seen in a game at the time was within the opening 10 minutes of this game. And like, you're just like, oh man, like when I got done playing that first 10 minutes, I was just like,
Gotta take a break.
That's the opening. Like, what am I going to experience the rest of the way through? And this game just doesn't stop. Like, it's a weight on your chest when you're playing through it. It's like, man, like, I'm struggling sometimes playing through, because it's like, man, I don't want to do half of this stuff, because it's just, is it worth it? What about you, Tom?
Gotcha.
Since this is your first time, like, what was your mindset going in?
So going in, my mindset was of huge degrees of hype. This is one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time. As we joked up front, it's something that a lot of gamers in general talk about as just like the high end of gaming as an art form. So sitting down, I was just like, oh, I'm about to read one of the classic books ever written, or I'm about to watch one of the best movies ever made. I was in that mindset and ready to go. And I over the years, I think I've had a very successful avoidance rate of spoilers for this game. Very few things were known to me, so I was just all in. I was like, great, I'm in for a fresh, unique experience. So I think we have to put the spoiler warning up for a 7-year-old game at this point. Don't listen any further unless we can give you a time code later. Maybe we'll flash it on screen of where to skip to if you want to avoid spoilers. But we're just gonna talk about everything going forward.
Yeah, it's really hard with this game. Just hitting the big places that you go to in the game without like trying to beat around the bush of where you're going to. So yeah, let's just dive right in.
Even the game's inciting incident is based around a tragic twist. So it's like you can't even begin to talk about it without saying, "Hey, here's a surprise,"
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. So Josh, I'm going to just come out and say up front, I would say I was extremely just middle ground on this game at the point of completing it. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. I beat it and I was kind of like, okay. Like, I can see why in the time this came out, this probably blew everyone's minds. I can see that there's aspects of it that have held up to a degree where I'm like, that was very good, very exceptional for a game like this. But there's a lot in this, and I will say, kind of, in my opinion, motivated by gameplay, where I was just like, this is kind of frustrating, not compelling for me.
Yeah.
For me. And I don't know where you want to start. Do you want to go through the entire narrative of this game, or do you just kind of want to have an extended convo where we bounce all around? What would you prefer?
Let's just have a conversation, just bouncing back and forth, with our experience. And if there's anything that stood out in the game, or anything that stood out per each area that you go to in this game, just let's hit up on there, and we'll just try to chit chat a little bit about those. So, what would you say? Let's just start with what didn't you like when it came to your gameplay?
Well, what I didn't like when I come to the gameplay is the gameplay. I found the control layout for this game, and I should specify, I also have to ask you, so I played this on the PlayStation 3 for this episode. I played it in its original context. Josh, what version of this game did you play for this episode?
I did play the PlayStation 4 remastered version.
Okay.
Because you had my copy of the PlayStation
3. Makes sense. I was not crazy with the controller layout for this game. And I think I might have even said in our Uncharted episode, I was not a fan of where they put certain functions. And I guess this is just a Naughty Dog thing that I'm going to have to accept if I go forward in their games. Question for you. Can you remap the buttons in the PS4 remaster?
I'm pretty sure you can. Couldn't you remap them on the PlayStation 3?
Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but...
I thought you could, because I know in the Uncharted games you can remap the buttons.
Interesting. So I just set myself up for frustration, I guess. But
you did this for Halo.
Yeah, I did it. Well, you know what? Yeah, never mind. I did it for... And my excuse on Halo was I needed to play it the way the developers intended it.
Mm-hmm.
So... they require you to use the top LR buttons, not the shoulders or the triggers, whatever you call it. I call the first row bumpers and the back row triggers.
Yeah.
So a lot of the primary action is on L1 and R1, and it's not very natural. And then even with L2 and R2, like running is L2, but X is basically nothing except in certain context cues, and reload is the same button as fire, but it's only reload when you're not in a firing stance because you can't just like hip fire in this game. So I would lose that a whole bunch of times. So just for me personally, it took me a long time to just muscle memory the controller because it just is so unlike any third person action game of its ilk, and there's just so many games from around this time period that seem to follow a more comfortable universal standard, and Naughty Dog is just like, nah, man, like you're gonna do what we wanted you to do with the controller. And in ways I can respect that, but in certain ways it felt a little unintuitive to me. But like what's your opinion on it? Did you readjust anything or
No, I didn't readjust anything. I thought the controls were fine. I don't think that there was really anything that like hindered my gameplay of the controls.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some things in the game that I just was like, okay, we're getting up to a point right now where I know I'm going to run into a bunch of. It was kind of like bad guys. It was zombies or clickers or runner or freakers, and then it was bad guys again, and then it was rinse, wash, repeat every area that you went into, and it did get annoying sometimes, but other times it was when it added to the story, and it built tension. Like when you are with Bill and you guys are in the school and you go into the gymnasium and then you see the bloater come through and it's like, whoa, okay. Like it was like, all right, you knew that there was going to be zombies coming through sooner or later. But then when you heard the big guys coming, it's like, what the hell is that?
Zombies were fine enough. Like the tension from them comes in their numbers. You're never in an arena of combat where you're only going to face like a comfortable amount of zombies. You have to fight them very carefully because you can alert the whole swarm and then they'll all rain down on you and then you're screwed, or you can carefully take them out. But if you don't take them out intelligently, you'll run out of ammo, so it is very much it's a balancing act when you're fighting the zombies. I honestly can say I felt the most tension and challenge when I was facing the humans in this game, the remnants of human society who have kind of, for one reason or another, they form into either like military groups or bandits or other kinds of scavengers. And I think the human AI in this game is very good in terms of the enemy AI, it's very good and very competitive. They will work together. They'll, surround you. They'll one will charge at you and one will flank you, and it can really mess you up in ways that I didn't expect. And so I would say for me, that's where the most amount of tension came in combat with enemy AI. What about you? Like, did you have a preference for what type of enemy you faced?
I always got like, there was always tension when I heard the clickers. And
clickers, I will say, like probably one of the new like terrifying standards of gaming enemies.
It is so. And after I just recently beat this, I went and played Last of Us 2 immediately after, and I was like, the clicker noise is just so unsettling, and it works so well. It's so simple.
Yeah,
it's just
absolutely. Oh, that was good.
Thank you. But it's just so unsettling though for something so simple. And then when you see them, you're like, oh, God. And I love the transition, though, that there's different types of these creatures because it's how long they've been exposed to the cordyceps fungus.
Yes. This pathogen in the air, which you learn about at the beginning of the story, it has an effect on the human brain. Basically, once you become infected, it slowly takes you over, deprives you of your motor functions and your human consciousness, and just turns you into a mindless kind of carnivorous machine. And then with the clickers, as Josh was saying, they've evolved to the point where the fungus has now almost grown over their whole head, and they can't see, but they can hear very well. And they kind of, I assume the clicking is like a bat screech. It's like the clicks are
almost like a sonar.
Yeah. So very terrifying enemy, very well handled. On the opposite side of the AI spectrum, I had I had several comically frustrating moments where your partner AI would just do things that would either slightly annoy me or fully anger me. So you're seemingly always paired with somebody in this game unless it's for dramatic purposes. Like Joel initially is exploring the ruins of Boston with his partner Tess, and then he's paired up with Ellie, and then for a chapter you're joined by Bill, and then for another chapter you're joined by another pair of survivors named Henry and Sam. You know, there's always some kind of AI partner that they throw you with. And it's just like, I had an encounter with Tess where we're fighting zombies and clickers in an underground market. And Tess is not only actively getting in my line of fire, but I swear I was taking bullet damage from her. Like if I was in front of a zombie that she was trying to fire at, I was losing health for it. And I was just like, what are you doing? Like, how does this happen? And then further in the game, when Ellie, your primary escort partner, she starts evolving to take defensive action with a gun or a knife. There would be times where I would be fist fighting an enemy, and then Ellie would begin the animation of jumping on him and stabbing him, and then it interrupts Joel because like he's still kind of engaged with the enemy he thinks he's punching, but now he's disengaged, and it left me open to getting attacked by somebody else. And it was just kind of like, oh, thanks for nothing, Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you saved me by throwing me into something else. Some stealth sections for me were also kind of ruined by AI. Like, I'm trying to be really super sneaky, and Henry is like running through a searchlight and just like hey, but like you know they don't care about him. It's only me.
Right. I mean, you're gonna get that. I mean, this is pretty much escort mission the game.
Yeah.
Right. But I think at the time, like, this is one of the better escort mission style games. The last one that we had and we talked about on this podcast was BioShock Infinite, where that was pretty much an escort mission game. There really isn't many out there like this, like Resident Evil 4.
Well, I just want to say this. In a sincere non-bit between you and me, like talk about Resident Evil 4, something I like about the escort mechanics in that game is that you can give Ashley orders that in some cases will like, you know, make her less of a problem. You know, it's like go over there or like stay here, you know. And in this game, like if I could have told Ellie just like stay put for like certain encounters, like, you know, it would have been a little bit better. I don't know if that maybe is an evolution Last of Us Part 2.
I don't know if you had no, it's not. But I don't know if you had the thing where like sometimes if you were walking around an area, Ellie would come over and be like, "Hey, I found this." And she would like hand you like ammunition or something like that.
Once or twice, which also kind of frustrated me that it wasn't more prevalent. Like there were few. I feel like they only happened when I was on the verge of death. Ellie would toss me ammo or something. Mm-hmm. So maybe I guess it's a last minute thing. You know,
it's one of those like, hey, like you're on the verge of dying. You're getting ready to leave this area. You're missing a health pack right now. Here's this one that you were supposed to grab. She got it for you. When it comes to the characters, though, who would you say, other than the main two, was your favorite characters or your favorite like side story piece?
So here's just an interesting thematic thing I wanted to talk to you when we got to the story, but it's good enough of a time to bring it up. What I found story-wise truly interesting about this game is so like the infection and like the zombie threat, they're kind of like the generic conflict just to get the story going. It's like, what's the drama? Zombies. Okay. But what's the story really about? And for me, the story was about human ugliness. Just about, it's a story that says if humanity was ever pushed to the brink, we're gonna lose all sense of goodness and hope. And like, it was pretty much like you said at the beginning. It was kind of a message I didn't want to hear in 2020, you know. But if you look at the themes throughout the game, characters we meet,
I was prepping for this for a long time, so
yeah, characters we meet. Oh yeah, you've had no faith in humanity forever. So. But all right, so characters we meet, they all to one degree or another have a lot of really understandably selfish qualities that
they all
still,
have baggage.
You know, yeah, like Bill, who is a character you meet a little bit after Joel and Ellie leave the city of Pittsburgh. He represents isolationism, you know, me before you, me before them. And his one glimmer of hope is this romantic relationship that they, you know, imply through, you know, just his character background and some implications with his body language in a cutscene. And through a not so subtle magazine that Ellie finds. Basically, Bill had a romantic relationship with a guy named Frank, and it's just kind of funny because Frank seemed to hate Bill, but I guess at the end of the world, it's like when all you have is who's ever left, maybe you just make it worth. But Frank kills himself just out of despair and a lack of hope. So Bill is now once again with nothing, and his isolationism kind of, I imagine, makes him even more lonely. The characters of Henry and Sam, who you meet in the city of Pittsburgh. I'm getting this wrong because I apologize. You meet Bill after you leave Boston, and then you meet Henry and Sam in Pittsburgh. But they're a pair of brothers, and they travel with you for a while in kind of a mirror, like, adult protector with child tag along kind of storyline. But Henry and Sam have a very firm blood is thicker than water, preserve the family, preserve the homestead, the cost of all others, selfishness. It's not that's something you can't understand, but it causes some drama where at one point Henry and Sam just outright abandon you because they're just like, screw you, got mine.
Right.
And we have David, who you meet later in the game. He's just descended completely into savagery because, with no functioning society, why should we behave according to the rules?
Let me stop you right there. What did you think of the whole David part? Like, when I played through the first time, I was like, man, this was so unexpected. Like, I don't think it needed to be in the game.
It didn't.
But it helped build Ellie's character for her having to experience this world firsthand by herself.
Well, okay. Well, see, that's where I'm mixed up. That's part of something I'm mixed on with this game too, is how they develop Ellie's loss of innocence, so to say. Like, the encounter with David happens well over the halfway mark in the game, and it's a period where you are playing solely as Ellie without Joel. And the whole thing is just meant to be Ellie experiencing this brutal episode of violence and survival that she has yet to encounter without Joel's help. And at the very end, she has to, very savagely murder David to preserve her own survival. And I think, personally, it would have meant a lot more to the narrative and Ellie's arc if Ellie had never killed before that point in the game. But both narratively, wherein Ellie has killed at one point because she had to save Joel from a bandit, so like she shot the bandit in the head. But then also gameplay wise, like, because Ellie is a defensive AI character who will sometimes stab people to help you, we've seen Ellie's capable of violence. I know the David thing was a super duper level of violence, but I think if Ellie was 100% pure, if she had been spared having to kill beforehand, I think killing David would have hit, not that it wasn't brutal, but I wouldn't think it would have been more emotionally resonant for me if she had never done
I think
that.
what did you
think about the David? Go ahead.
I think the performance that Ashley delivers during that scene, though, just shows a character breaking, and it's her performing a character breaking in such a believable state. And I think her performance is really what sets the tone for the rest of the game. Because you can see after that happens and Joel's holding her and trying to calm her down and stuff like that, it cuts to spring and she's still just not fully there.
Yeah.
Because that changed her. That changed her.
Yeah.
And I just think it was something that came out of nowhere. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And then it kind of turned into that boss fight. And I was like, okay, so this is going to be the end boss fight. And then you realize that the game's still going to keep going. It's like, oh, all right. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to play as Ellie now. And that's going to be a good way to finish the game, to see her side of the game play through. And I think it was a good change of pace because now it went into more horror for her, where it was more we're not dealing with zombies right now. Now we're dealing with humanity at its worst. And I think it worked really well with how unexpected it was.
I agree with you. All the credit in the world to Ashley Johnson's performance. She does a lot. And, considering that it's all motion capture where you're not reacting to anything but a warehouse around you, hell of a job. All the props in the world for that. Like I said, my thing is just with kind of story buildup. And I think it would have, for me, meant more if it was Ellie's innocent. Oh, look how she had to sacrifice her innocence in this dramatic moment.
Right.
But not saying it didn't work. I'm just saying I think it could have worked a little bit better.
Right. So,
something you brought up.
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to talk about something while it's still on my mind. You talked about the time jump after Ellie's dramatic encounter with David. I can really say that like a little bit of this game that irked me was the time jumps, or just any kind of just like jump they use to excuse, I don't know, like there's so many moments in this game where it's like it reaches this peak of either storytelling drama or like the scale of the adventure has gotten really big, and then it cuts to black, and then it's just like months later or a season later, and it's like, oh, we're here. There's a point where it's like they're in, I guess, Jackson, Mississippi, and they realize, oh, in order to get here, we have to go all the way to Colorado. And it's like, man, what kind of harrowing adventure is that going to be for Joel and Ellie? How much are they going to explore and grow? Cut to, they're in Colorado. It's like, oh, okay. Like, I thought I was going to.
There is one thing in the DLC, the Left Behind DLC, when Joel falls out of the window and he gets stabbed in the side. The DLC kind of picks up a little bit right after that. So in the regular game, that scene there, it would pick up with her in the wintertime trying to go and hunt food and stuff like that.
That's what happened for me, yeah.
Yeah, so in the Left Behind DLC for the game, it picks up a little bit after that, like she's going to find medicine in a mall and stuff like that for him, and you get a little bit more of Ellie's like background and where she came from and what happened to her before we saw her at the beginning of the game and how she got bitten, because that's something we didn't even talk about yet, that Ellie is immune to the virus.
Yes, of course. Yes. The big trigger for this game is Joel's a man who lost his daughter when this apocalypse started. 20 years after that, he is tasked with the leader of a military group who he has a connection with through his estranged brother, says, this girl is immune from the virus. I need you to escort her to people who will help get a disease curing vaccine made from her blood. Major Children of Men vibes for me, like as soon as I saw that setup. I don't know if you've seen that film.
Yeah.
Did we see that film in theaters together back in 06?
No, I watched it on DVD by myself, and I was like, there's one scene, of course, that everyone talks about from that movie that's amazing, and then other than that, I was like, it's all right, a movie.
Yeah, but gruff older man who's lost his family, who must protect a young woman whose special medical condition is the turning point for humanity, and he must escort her through a hellscape of urban decay. Very, very similar inspiration. I would not be surprised if they said, yeah, we took some inspiration from that. So Josh, when this came out, did you play the multiplayer mode in this game? I didn't even open it because I assumed the servers would be down on the PS3.
So I did. And I really enjoyed it.
Okay. How does it work? I'm curious.
So it was pretty much like deathmatch. Everyone, I think it was 8 players. Trying to remember back. It's been a long time. But I think it was 8 players, 2 teams, 2 factions. It was like a military force versus the Fireflies or whatnot. And what you would do is you would go around and grab parts up and build your like weapons in the game. Like, so you would have like to build like the pipe bombs, and you'd have to build all the other like the shivs and stuff like that, and you would go and just attack each other from both ends. You could sneak up on each other and stab them and stuff like that. It was pretty fun. I played it a decent amount when it first came out because I was like, okay, I beat the game. I'm not going to go back in and rebeat it because, man, it was depressing. But the multiplayer was really fun. I think the closest thing more recent that kind of was similar to this was the Tomb Raider multiplayer for the re-release of Tomb Raider. I didn't
realize that had multiplayer.
I think it did. Did.
This is one of those games where, I remember when Arkham Origins had DLC. I remember when Arkham Origins had multiplayer. It was like,
that was terrible.
Goons versus Batman, and that was one of those examples where I was like, it's okay for strong single player games to just have single player modes. So when I saw Last of Us had multiplayer, I was like, how did this work? But you're speaking pretty positively of it. That's
it was fun. The Uncharted games had multiplayer as well to them, and they were all right. But this was actually fun because it felt like you were in that world where you were scavenging for parts to use to kill other people.
Okay, I guess it's just because I'm coming to the table so many years later. I can't grasp how it would have worked. But all right, that's awesome.
So I do want to talk about though, when we were talking about side characters and like little side pieces of story, right? The best story I think in this game is the one that you don't see.
Is it Ish?
It is Ish. Ish's story is one of the best non-playable stories. Just reading about the world that this guy built underground in the sewers, the fact that they built an entire school, they had a whole like ecosystem down there to make sure that people were able to just survive. They had the school there where they had the kids learning how to do stuff. And when you walk through the sewers and you open the door and you're in a classroom, and like this is like, there was very weird, eerie vibes. It's like, there's not going to be like little kid zombies running around this place, is there? And like, luckily enough, there's not.
Yeah.
But if you're looking, you find the kids. But man,
this is all delivered through notes you find.
And it's one of those things, like that was one of the only times I think in a video game where I wanted to collect all the notes. I usually, when I play through, I'm like, oh, if I see something there, I'll grab it because I might get an achievement or a trophy or something like that. But seeing it and reading Ish's story, I was like, man, like this is heavy. And
absolutely
the downfall of it because somebody left a door unlocked. And they just came.
Is one simple mistake.
They came through the night. And I highly recommend, there's a lot of videos on YouTube, and I can't remember the person who I watched. He did it was like a 15-20 minute video about Ish's story and just the lore of what happened during that time. And it's just so good. That's probably one of my most memorable and favorite parts of this game, was something that you don't even see happen. You just walk through what used to be. And it's just great.
I would say it's only rivaled by certain audio tapes from BioShock that tell a consecutive story tape to tape if you're collecting them. But this was more emotional, just like you get a note and it's like, oh, Ish is talking about how they formed a clean water collection system for the sewers. And it's like, interesting. So these survivors were like really putting their brains to it. And then, as you said, you come across this makeshift school with children's toys everywhere, and you pick up a piece of paper and it's a drawing a child did of Ish and Daniel, our guardians, and it's two guys in body armor with guns. And it's like, what kind of brutal life is that for like a kid that, they tell you in kindergarten to like, oh, have drawing time, and you might draw anything more pleasant than like the two guys who save us from zombies. It's rough. Yeah. And then Ish, I won't spend too much time on it. Very good, very well handled. I also agree with you. Incredible. So as we've kind of been talking, this is just a heavy game of Joel and Ellie are traveling the country. They're meeting different groups of people. They're seeing how society has managed. Josh, can we just talk about the climax of the game? Do you want to start like talking about what happens once Joel gets Ellie to the planned destination?
So when you get to Salt Lake City and you actually pass out before, you get knocked out. Yeah,
as you do in this game.
Yeah, you get knocked out right before you get to the hospital. And what they do is they take Ellie and they take you in because the Fireflies have found you guys and all is going to be well. And they go in and they prep Ellie for surgery to start working on the vaccine. And Joel is given the news by Marlene that in order to get this vaccine, the host needs to die, which doesn't sit well for Joel. Because he's spent an entire year with this girl who have had rocky back and forth with. But he is starting to slowly see her as a daughter figure for the daughter that he lost at the beginning of the game, which is the most heartbreaking 10 minutes of video game in more recent years.
Because like I said, it's human ugliness.
It is the up.
But again, like I said, human ugliness. The only reason Joel's daughter dies is because the panicked military thinks we have to just kill all these people because any of them could be infected. So again, human ugliness. But go on. I didn't mean
so now Joel is given the option to leave. And the vaccine will be created and the world will start to be better. And Joel doesn't see it that way. So Joel decides to go on a murder spree of the hospital. Joel goes in and saves Ellie by any means necessary.
And just to add on to that, the stakes are made very clear to Joel in this standoff he has. Marlene, who, as we mentioned, head of this organization that wants to restore the world, is basically telling him, look, I get that you care about Ellie, but this is the needs of the many against the needs of the few. And we have another cut to black, and you assume maybe Joel got knocked out. Maybe something fell on his head. But it's a cut to black. And what do we find out happens, Josh?
Joel shoots Marlene. Leaves her to die. Gets in a car and drives away with Ellie. Going back to Jackson to hang out with his brother.
But more importantly, so after Ellie wakes up, what happens? Because this is the keyest of key things for me.
Joel tells Ellie that there are others like her and that there was no vaccine. There's no cure. It didn't work. And fade to black.
So Josh, how did you feel about the ending of this game?
Going through and playing this game at first, I was like, you are the bad guy. You are the bad guy. And it was something I did not see coming, because after playing all the Naughty Dog games, you think there's going to be a happy ending. And this game is about the Last of Us and the survival of us. And you should have saw it coming from the beginning, that with how this game is meant to make you feel terrible as you play through, not only do you feel terrible during the things that you're doing in the game, but you feel terrible after it's over. That you prevented the cure from happening.
And then you lied to Ellie.
Yeah. Not only do you lie to her in the car, but you lie to her in the epilogue too.
Yeah.
And the epilogue scene, she knows something's wrong. She knows it's not, he's lying. And he tells her that he swears. Credits. So what did you see it coming?
No. And I have to say, I thought it was upsetting in just this way. It was upsetting for a couple of reasons. The first and foremost I want to say is, like, I guess this had to have been always intended to get a sequel, because this is not, in my opinion, a definitive ending. Like, it's an ending to Joel's arc of... It's a dark ending to Joel's arc. It's Joel starts as a cynical man who wants nothing to do and that doesn't really seem to even care about humanity. And then through Ellie, he comes to care again. But as I say with Human Ugliness, he only cares in a selfish way. You know what I mean? Like, Ellie is only important to him because it fills the gap his daughter left. And so he's willing to literally throw mankind under the bus just so he doesn't have to go through that pain again. And I don't think, like, ethically it's right. So, but it ends on a cliffhanger where I'm like, well, of course you needed a part 2, because there's no way this can be the ending, because this is just dour with a capital D, So
imagine waiting 6 years to find out, or 7 years to find out how it ends. Or
imagine if this game
not ends, but how it continues.
Yeah.
On.
Imagine if this game had hypothetically flopped, but you were like one of the handful of people who like did love it, and you get to the end and you realize there never will be a sequel, and you're just like, no. But yes, Joel does something very, in my opinion, wrong for what he thinks are the right reasons, and then he tells Ellie a lie. And what's even worse is, like, right before you take her to the Fireflies, and you're assuming they're gonna like safely make a vaccine with Ellie's blood, they're having a conversation, and it's the first time Joel opens up about his daughter, and he makes all his pain clear to Ellie. And then there's a conversation where Joel says to Ellie, what if we just give up on all this and we go back to Jackson, where there's like, a human settlement, and we just have a good life together, like we make our own family. And Ellie says, no, this all can't have been for nothing. And the ending, it's not nothing for Joel. Like the end, the moral of his adventure is he got over his pain and learned to find a new family. But if you think about what he sacrificed, it kind of did make a lot of this for nothing. You know, like Henry and Sam, did they die for nothing? I don't know if what would have happened to Henry and Sam still would have happened, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's a brutal ending. Yeah.
But in 2020,
yes.
I think Joel was in the right.
Whoa, explain.
It's a vaccine. It's not curing the people who are already infected. It's preventing the people who are already existing from getting the disease.
Well, yeah, but it's down to The Last of Us, so we have to save The Last of Us.
All right. So we saved The Last of Us, who's already murdering each other. Right? And then you're going to say, "Oh, you got a vaccine? Now, well, I'm going to kill you for it. And I'm going to try to sell it." And I'm going to
you're saying okay. So you're saying humanity's already so far gone that
have you played the game? Humanity's eating each other, Tom. We've already gone crazy.
So, but you're saying that it's not worth trying to come back, you know, like you think the message is kind of, it's over, like.
I mean, yes, like every place you go, there's going to be something terrible there. It's humanity. They've just gone ahead and destroyed everything that we've had. And you give somebody hope. Now, what about all the anti-vaxxers out there? You ain't putting that in me. Blah 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 blah. There's no virus out there. Like,
I would love to see Jenny McCartney exist in this world and deny. I heard that if you take the anti-clicker vaccine, your child will not only turn into a clicker, but an autistic clicker. You know?
But think about it though. Like, the world has gone to hell. People are eating each other. People are killing each other. Military forces are destroying the world. What is a vaccine going to do? And how long is it going to take to actually get to everybody? And this is only America. Are we going to ship it overseas? Like,
I see it more like, let's talk about the end of WALL-E. You know, all it takes is one little seed and a lot of effort working together to maybe save the world and come back from the brink of nothingness. Obviously, there's no horrible zombies and cannibalism and you know, terrible law-breaking bandits in WALL-E, or at least as far as I know, there's not. But there are apocalyptic stories where, you know, there can be hope. But I see what you mean. You're kind of taking a Snake Plissken in Escape from LA kind of situation where at the end you just like, screw humanity, and then you just like feed them to the dogs because. Right, we're so far gone we can't be saved.
So and that's the thing too. Like I said, playing through this game the first time, I was like, I can't believe I'm the bad guy. Am I still the bad guy in 2020? Yes, you are. Like you have destroyed this girl's thought process of being the hope for humanity, being able to not have anybody else suffer. And you robbed her of that. Mm-hmm. And it sucks, but I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know if it would have worked.
Well, I mean, I'll never know until I get to play Last of Us Part 2, which I can't say I am interested to play. Not that we'd be able to cover it for a while. But
now I will say though, Last of Us 2 is great.
A game.
It is great. It is great. Okay. I want to talk about it, but I mean, we might talk about it towards the end of the year. I don't know. Right, so. I don't know where it's going to rank right now. The story, the dynamic between the characters, I can't talk about it without going into spoilers. And I think there's only like 2 people out in this world right now that I can really talk to face to face who've actually completed this game fully. And I know we post this up, people are probably going to destroy the comment feeds of it. And please don't, because like, let Tom experience it the same way that he experienced this.
I mean, you know, destroy the comments in a positive way, you know, fill that comment section up, but also don't spoil Last of Us Part 2 for me, please. That's till I can get to it.
So coming out of spoilers.
Yeah. Whatever
Tom,
the time code is.
What did you think of The Last of Us? Your final words.
My final words would just have to be that this is, one of the most unique spins on this genre of games. The action adventure, survival horror. It's got a lot of thought-provoking aspects to it. I can't say its gameplay is completely refined, but it's ambitious, and I think I would rather play an ambitious game than a boring game. And it's something that can, no matter what you get out of it, I think this would generate good conversations. Josh and I just had a really good conversation generated from it. So I would definitely recommend you play it. I guess I could recommend maybe playing it in the remastered form. I mean, I don't know how many people just have PS3s they can bust out. I feel like PS4s would be a little bit more prevalent. So, get it on the PS4. If I ever get to play it again, I will probably try to play the remaster. Josh, what about you?
I think it is really close to a masterpiece in storytelling when it comes to games. There is just the characters in this game that Ashley and Troy bring to life is worth the price of admission. You can usually find this game pretty cheap now. Honestly, when it goes on sale, there's a lot of times where it's on sale for $10. Pick it up. Even if you don't have a PlayStation 4, pick it up or download it through a PlayStation account, because one day you'll play this. And it's one of those games where people like, oh, well, it's one of those games when you talk about like iconic games, and you talk about Halo or Mario or the Zelda games, like they all have the one particular thing, right? Everyone talks about Uncharted. A lot of people talk about Uncharted 2. I think Uncharted 3 is better, but it's a heavy game, and it just makes you feel the weight that all of these characters go through and what the world could come to one day.
It's heavy.
It is like
it's I don't know what kind of mood I could recommend to play it in. I guess I should also mention that. It's
because if you're in a really good mood, chances are this is going to take you out of it. Mm-hmm. If you are I guess if you just want to sit down and you want to play a great story-driven game, put this in. It maybe 12 hours total.
Teenish for me.
Yeah.
Because I make sure I kind of carefully explored all the areas for weapon upgrades and stuff. But like not all art has to be uplifting and happy. There's great books that end on downer notes. There's great movies that end in tragedy. But it's what the stories are trying to say on a greater level through these sad moments that are worth talking about and are interesting. And I think Last of Us does that. And it's unique because gaming doesn't usually try, I think, as an art form to push you. Well, it's gotten better in the last decade. I think the 2010s is really where it started to come into its own in that. And maybe we can credit The Last of Us, Josh, for doing that. Like of saying to video games, like, let's just talk about some dark stuff, but talk about why it's dark. It's incredibly interesting. Like I said, a game that'll have you thinking, and I think that's worth talking about.
Yeah, and we look at it though. This game it got 10 out of 10s everywhere. Like sure. It was Game of the Years. It was it sold in 7 days 1.3 million copies of the game. Like it is a gaming blockbuster. So do you recommend people play Last of Us?
I do. Josh, do you?
Absolutely. And there you have it, people. We the
definitive word on The Last of Us. There's no other review you have to listen to.
That's it.
7 years later.
That's it.
Close the book.
And until next time, this has been Josh
and Tom.
And we'll see you in the future. Well, that's all the time that we can spend in the past, so thanks for listening. Subscribe to A Cast of the Past on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play. And stay up to date with The Cast of the Past by making sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There you can be the first to know when new episodes drop, as well as joining in on discussions on all things gaming. And until next time, we'll see you in the future.